The wind howled over Dry Hollow like a mourning mother that morning. The town had barely risen from sleep when they brought her out. Caroline Avery, the outlaw's widow, dressed in faded white, with her wrists bound in frayed rope, her long chestnut hair tangled in the breeze, and her bruised cheek bore the harsh fingerprint of Sheriff Tate Maddox, the man who dragged her into this nightmare. He stood behind her, smug and righteous, with the noose in his hand and vengeance burning in his eyes. Jonas McAllister stood among the small crowd gathered near the gallows in silence. The brim of his hat shadowed his face, but his eyes, sharp, storm grey, never left her. He hadn't spoken to Caroline in nearly 4 years, not since she married Boone Avery, the infamous outlaw who had once robbed half the Southern Trail, and whose name still caused spines to stiffen. Jonas had loved her once, quietly, respectfully, from the other side of the fence. She was the preacher's daughter. He was the bastard son of a dying drunk and a Comanche woman. He worked cattle. She taught children to read scripture. He'd known she was never meant to be his, but he'd loved her all the same. And now she stood beneath the hanging tree, her bare feet dusty, her head held unnaturally high. Her lips weren't trembling, her eyes were dry. That made it worse. Sheriff Maddox cleared his throat and raised a weathered scroll. Caroline Avery, you've been tried in absence and found guilty of aiding and abetting treason against the state of Wyoming. You consorted with a known outlaw, harbored stolen property, and committed unholy rituals on sacred land. For these crimes, you shall hang until dead. Caroline's voice rang clear, surprising the whole square. I never committed treason. I loved a man you couldn't catch, and I healed the sick when no doctor came. Maddox snarled. You healed with herbs and chants. You spat on the Lord. She looked skyward. Then may the Lord catch me when I fall. The floor dropped. Jonas didn't know what made him move. Only that his boots hit the dirt a second before her body did. He saw her swing once. He saw the crowd gasp. Then chaos erupted as the sheriff's deputies pushed back the murmuring townsfolk. Jonas didn't breathe until the sun had dipped behind the spire of the church and the gallows stood empty again. They buried her quickly. No ceremony, no cross. Just a small patch of dry earth behind the saloon where the wind wouldn't speak her name. But Jonas didn't go home. Instead, he waited until darkness fell like a cloak across the desert. Then he moved, with the silence of a man who knew what death really looked like, and what it didn't. He reached the grave before midnight. His lantern flickered in the wind, casting long, strange shadows across the wooden fence. The earth was disturbed, but not fresh. He pulled his shovel free from the leather loop on his saddlebag and began to dig. Each scoop of earth brought back memories. The time Caroline brought him bread after his father died. The way her voice softened when she sang in the church choir. The way she once looked at him before Boone Avery took her hand. After nearly an hour, the shovel hit pine. He dropped to his knees and pried the coffin lid open. She was still, pale, but not blue. Her lips were parted slightly, and a whisper, yes, a whisper, escaped them like a thread. Jonas leaned close. She breathed. He lifted her carefully from the box and carried her back through the mesquite toward his ranch. She weighed nothing, a ghost with a heartbeat. The next morning, Dry Hollow rose like nothing had happened. The gallows stood empty. The sheriff rode out toward Laramie to report the hanging. The preacher wiped his hands clean of a daughter he had long disowned. And no one asked questions. No one, except Jonas McAllister, who sat at Caroline's bedside in the upstairs room of his ranch house with her hand in his. It took 2 days for her to wake. When she did, she screamed. He didn't flinch. "Caroline," he said softly, "you're alive." Her eyes darted wildly. "Why am I here?" "You weren't dead," he replied. "You should have let me be." She wept then, in hard, sharp sobs that cracked her voice and bled her dry. Jonas just held her quietly, with the patience of a man who knew broken things and never ran from them. "You were hanged," he whispered, "but something in me wouldn't believe it." She shook her head. "I saw darkness, but I wasn't gone. Not fully. I heard things, felt the wind, heard your voice." They said nothing for a while. Then she asked, "Does the town know?" "No, they buried you and moved on." "I should stay buried," she said. Jonas leaned back, looking into her tired face. "You didn't deserve to die, and you sure as hell don't deserve to disappear." She blinked. "You always did believe the best of me." Jonas exhaled. "I never stopped loving you, Caroline." She turned away. "I'm a widow of a wanted man, a so-called witch, and now a ghost to my town. You're still you." That night, as the crickets sang and the coyotes called, Caroline Avery sat on the porch of the ranch house, wrapped in Jonas's old blanket. She stared at the stars like they might answer her questions. He didn't ask what she saw. He just brought her warm water and stayed beside her until she stopped shaking. The story of Caroline Avery's hanging was done in Dry Hollow, but Jonas McRae knew, deep in the bones of his soul, that something darker had only just begun. Because the man who ordered the hanging, Sheriff Tate Maddox, wasn't done with her, and neither was the truth. Jonas McAllister hadn't slept all night. The fire crackled low in the hearth of the cabin, shadows dancing on the wooden walls as he sat by the cot where Caroline's body lay. Her skin was pale, her pulse faint, but her chest rose ever so slightly. He had undone the noose himself, his fingers still blistered from the rope burn, his mind echoing with the crowd's jeers, the sheriff's voice announcing her death. But she had not died, not yet. He had brought her back from the gallows, stealing her away while the townsfolk dispersed, convinced justice had been served. The noose had broken skin, but not her neck. He wrapped her in a thick blanket, cradled her across his saddle, and rode like a demon through dusk's dying light, back to his hidden ranch, nestled between the canyon walls. He could still feel her breath on his chest. Now the morning sun crept in, spilling gold across the floor. Jonas leaned closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "Come back to me, Caroline," he whispered, "one more time." She stirred. It was barely a tremble, a twitch of her fingers beneath the covers, but Jonas saw it. His heart thudded wildly. He grabbed a cloth, dipped it in warm water, and gently pressed it to her lips. Her throat worked slowly. Then her eyes fluttered open. Confusion crossed her face. Her lips parted. "Am I dead?" "You were," Jonas whispered, voice thick, "but not anymore." Tears welled in Caroline's eyes as memories rushed back. The betrayal, the trial, the cold gallows. They hanged me." "I know," Jonas said, "but I never stopped listening. I heard your heartbeat when no one else would." She gripped his hand like it anchored her to life. "Why would you risk everything?" "Because I knew the truth," he said. "And because I loved you long before all this madness started." Outside, a storm was building, not in the sky, but in the world Jonas had left behind. The town would realize soon that the body in the coffin wasn't hers, that Jonas had faked the burial with a decoy body, that the outlaw's widow had escaped death. But before that storm arrived, Jonas needed answers. "Tell me, Carolyn," he asked, "did you really love Elijah?" She stared into the fire. "At first, yes. He was kind, but the man he became, the man the world feared, that wasn't the man I married. He changed, Jonas. He became a killer, and I was too afraid to leave. You were accused of helping him rob the bank, that you fired a shot, killed a man." "I didn't fire anything," she said, shaking. "I was there, but I begged him to stop. When he refused, I tried to run, but the sheriff already had his mind made up." Jonas believed her. He always had. But Sheriff Maddox wouldn't, and Maddox would come. The next morning, it happened. A plume of dust rose in the distance. 6 riders, Maddox among them. Jonas stood outside the cabin, rifle in hand, ready. Caroline, still weak, stood beside him, her face pale, but her will iron strong. Maddox called out, "McAllister, you've broken the law." Jonas stepped forward. "I saved an innocent woman. You hanged her without proof." "She was an outlaw's wife. That's proof enough." "No, Maddox, it isn't. And if justice means killing a woman who never fired a bullet, then maybe it's justice that's broken." Maddox dismounted, his eyes locked on Caroline. Shock flickered, then fury. "You should be dead." "But I'm not," she said coldly, "and I'll tell the world what really happened that day, the lies, the cover-up, everything." Maddox reached for his gun, but Jonas was faster. His rifle fired once, straight into the sheriff's thigh. Maddox dropped, howling. Jonas leveled the barrel at the remaining deputies. "You want to try me? Go ahead." None of them moved. By sundown, Jonas and Caroline had vanished into the canyon. The town would whisper legends of the outlaw's widow, who came back from the dead, and the rancher, who heard her heartbeat through the silence of death. They crossed state lines by moonlight. Caroline's strength returned, and in time, so did her laughter. She worked beside Jonas, building a new home, one with no gallows, no nooses, no ghosts. One evening, as the stars blinked above, she took Jonas's hand. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head. "Never. I heard your heartbeat, Caroline, and I'll never stop listening." And with that, the last beat of the outlaw's widow became the first of a new beginning. If you felt her heartbeat too, don't forget to subscribe. More stories of courage, love, and second chances are waiting for you here.